My Lord, I don't know what to understand from these stories of the Messiah. Please lead me into the truth.
Hold on, I don't think I've ever seen Ali use emojis on WhatsApp. Either something strange has happened, or technology has finally reached him.
I imagined Ali was either going to try to convince us to take the Hajj with him again, or he was going to ask for a raise from Mamoon's dad and wanted all of us for support.
I tried to imagine Ali sitting us down to tell us he'd fallen madly in love. It'd be like a quiet Egyptian street. It just wouldn't feel right.
I believe in Jesus.
I pray all of us would emulate your deep piety, Ali. But we, of course, all believe in the Prophet Jesus.
Not like that. I had a dream last night, but it wasn't just a dream. There were women taking spices to a tomb. When they arrived, an angel said to them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen." The stories we've been reading ran through my mind. The miraculous birth, the paralyzed man, the cross, and then I saw him.
Saw who?
I saw the Messiah.
What? Do you mean you saw Jesus?
He was dressed in white, and he was holding out his hands to me. But there was something strange.
What do you mean, something strange?
Like the story we read last week, his hands had these gruesome holes where he had been pierced and crucified.
What?
And he was speaking to me.
What did he say?
Come to me.
We've been reading a lot about Jesus. Is it strange you would have such a dream?
We haven't read the resurrection story. I've never read it.
What resurrection story?
I'm confused, my son.
When I woke from the dream, I began typing into Google what I'd seen and heard in my dream.
And then?
The account from the scriptures as to what happened after Jesus was crucified was the same as what happened in my dream.
My dear boy, you know far better than me. The Messiah wasn't crucified. The Lord raised him to himself.
He was crucified, and he rose from the dead. I believe the Injil.
Where is the story?
The Gospel of Luke, chapter 24.
The Injil says that as the women went to the tomb of Jesus taking spices, they found the stone had been rolled away from the entrance. They were met by two angels in dazzling white, and they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground.
And the next bit is just like Ali's dream too.
Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was in Galilee, that the Messiah must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise.
Why would God allow a prophet to be killed by sinful men? And what's the meaning of this rising from the dead?
God's promises to both Adam and Eve and the prophets are true. Sin is destroyed at the source, and Jesus is alive as King forever. This is the plan of redemption and forgiveness.
Ali?
Beginning with Adam and Eve, God's people offered sacrifices to honor God and remove the consequences of their sins. Though they were sinful, sacrifice allowed them to come back into right relationship with God, but the Messiah was the perfect substitute sacrifice.
The professor has been curiously silent and smiling the whole time. Well, Professor, what do you make of Ali's dream?
I've been praying for months you guys would experience Jesus in a personal way. I prayed especially for you, Ali.
Why? Why would you pray such a thing?
I want you to receive all the blessings of God's story as I have.
Listen to this. So after the women heard Jesus was risen, Jesus himself began appearing to his disciples.
I can't understand it.
Why would God allow this?
Where is God's blessing?
Peace to you.
What's that? It's a spirit.
Why are you so troubled, and why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Touch me and see.
Just like Ali's dream.
Like I said, it all fits perfectly. As I read the story last night and remember the other stories and the promises God made, all I kept feeling was, it's all true.
Then Jesus said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the Torah and the Zabur and the Injil must be fulfilled."
God's story.
Then Jesus opened their minds to understand the scriptures. Thus it is written that the Christ should suffer and on the third day rise from the dead, that repentance for the forgiveness of sin should be proclaimed in his name to all nations.
God's plan of redemption, complete forgiveness, with Jesus, the perfect sacrifice, taking the consequence of sin and shame.
Again, it's like the car incident. Jesus paid the whole price of the damage our sin has done, so he has the authority to forgive us.
Like I said, it all fits perfectly.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm not understanding the truths about the Messiah you are claiming to have discovered.
Ali, why don't you explain to Mahmoud's honourable father?
From the beginning, Adam and Eve were in wonderful relationship with God. God gave them perfect happiness and only instructed them not to eat from one tree. God wanted a relationship of trust with Adam and Eve. God is life, and he warned Adam and Eve that the result of choosing sin would be death. But Satan deceived them. They didn't honour God with their trust, just the opposite. The world became filled with brokenness, sin and death. But God still loved the people very much, and he didn't want to punish their sins with death. Through the prophets, God taught the people to offer sacrifices. Sacrifice was how the believers were to confess to God they had sinned, that they couldn't cover their own shame, and they deserved death for dishonouring God. The animal received the consequence, and the believers received forgiveness.
But the prophets knew the value of an animal couldn't carry the full consequence of their sin and restore God's honour.
And they prophesied about the one whom God would send, the Messiah, who would live a completely pure life without sin, and who would suffer and die for the people, be raised by God as king, and be able to restore people back into a right relationship with God forever.
The happily ever after, like Adam and Eve before they broke trust with God.
How do I become a part of this?
Through trust. Just like Abraham trusted God with his son, just like the prophets trusted in sacrifice for forgiveness, just like the paralyzed man trusted in the power of Jesus, God provides. We trust and believe in him.
So to be completely forgiven and fully restored to God, we trust in the forgiveness through Jesus.
Guys, I seriously believe all this. What do we do next?
Boys, if this is the truth, I think there are many people who need to hear this.